This is me just editing it around. I just recorded all the versions it made and threw them all into a sampler so I could then play back.
This episode is being supported by Tape It. If you currently use voice notes to record your ideas, you should try Tape It instead.
There's this a very simple plugin that I love called Kick Two by Sonic Academy, which is I think it's great for doing these very aggressive kicks with a sort of a lot of, you really hear the note sort of bend in. So it's a low one, but whoops, it's another layer, but let me hear, there's one later in the track actually, let me find it. So you have a lot of the clickiness and a lot of the sort of sine tone movement, and it's like so it gets more and more exaggerated. So that's something that kind of sort of gradually gets fleshed out.
Is it possible to hear a before and after of that?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's really just... it's the whole final section of the song is sort of messing with that, but let's take it. So here's it muted, and then it's sort of back in there, but you can really start to hear it here. I sort of, make a more extreme version of it for the end, really. It's almost like, I think I can't resist doing that. So the first time it happens in the track, it's got a functional purpose. I'm filling in the sub, I'm doing... I'm just reinforcing a kick sample that doesn't really have any weight. And then I'm like, well, I've already got this tool now, so I'm going to just overuse it to the point where it becomes something that you really notice, and then it becomes a foundation of the track. It's the Arturia DX7 plugin they do, and I'm layering it with Razor, which is a Reactor plugin that I used a lot, especially around then. I think it's the one that I mentioned trying to ban off Brat, even though we didn't fully ban it. But... so this is the DX7 and Razor together. And it's just kind of, it's a little bit lo-fi in a way, and it's a very weird bass line if you hear it with the, other parts removed, like when you hear it with the once again, I mean, all these tracks have had, moments of this sort of manual arpeggiator where the arp is doing a melody that's kind of leading the chord changes. So hearing it together makes more sense, but it's a kind of weird, slightly, it's got sort of budget sounding feel to it. So like I was even just toying around with an ultra, basic laser bass patch. So it can be, this kind of what sounds sort of FM-y, but you can add sort of too many, beating kind of layers to it. And you end up with this kind of, pretty atonal sound. But because that's on a dial, you've got something harmonic on one side and something sort of percussive on another side. And then if you start messing with octaves and other things, so that already, not only is that sort of quote unquote like extreme or kind of fun synthesis, it's also, it has a sort of musical goal inherent in it. Suddenly I've just got one sound that could either be a bass line or, like I said, be percussive or be this atonal thing, and you've got a dial that goes between those 2 points. So there's already a whole like sort of composition exercise or kind of sound design kind of tool kind of suggested, and that's me just on one setting of that.
This episode is being supported by our good friends at Tape It, the iPhone app made specifically for musicians. If you, like many of our guests, use voice memos, then as far as we're concerned, switching to Tape It is an obvious choice. It's free, and there are a load of features you won't find on Apple's Voice Memos app, including the ability to record straight from your lock screen, set markers, add notes, include photos of settings, and you can easily import your old voice notes, sync to the cloud, and create shared playlists with co-writers and bandmates. So head to the link below to install the app now. And if you want even more, check out Tape It Pro and use the promo code TAPENOTES to receive a whopping 50% off. And now, back to the episode.
Synplant works by listening to an audio sample, and then, I mean, it refers to itself as AI, but it's sort of just like it's not online or anything. It's just using this sort of algorithm to listen or attempt to recreate the audio sample hundreds of times really quickly, and then it'll sort of try and synthesize it. So there's no real sampling going on, but it's almost like, give it many failed attempts at recreating a symbol, and it'll eventually get there. But what's fun is that let me do it. It won't be exactly the same, but if I open up Synplant, so I think I started with this really basic crash sound from the demo. It's obviously just recorded and a little bit dirty, and I'm listening to it here. Oh wait, let me solo that. So, and then I just click generate patches. And these are all editable as well. So it's just going to keep.
So that's completely randomized.
You can hear that each one's getting a little bit closer to the sample.
Yeah.
So it's randomized, and then I assume it's the AI or the algorithm that's selecting from the random ones and being like, oh, this is a slightly closer match. And it has this whole DNA metaphor in the interface. So it's almost like, oh, this is a slightly better genetic match. Let's keep going. And you'll hear the more it's doing, they're all actually pretty close to it now, because that kind of symbol is doable. If you throw a vocal in, it would be interesting but pretty garbled. Or sometimes I've done a guitar chord and it kind of gets there, but it's but yeah, once you click on one of them, you can recall any of them. So that's an early one that kind of missed the boat, and then here's a later one that's pretty good. But you can then select and edit any of them, really. So you can be like, this is me just editing it around, so it's pretty fascinating. And actually, as a shortcut, because I was really just toying with it probably for the first time, I just recorded all the versions it made and threw them all into a sampler so I could then play back.
Right.
So I just had them, and it's similar to the sound, but once again, it's that uncanny thing where it's funny enough to have the cymbal be like the snare effectively in the song, but then to also make it this almost artificial acoustic cymbal. I really love these. It's another very simple Spire sound. So, but the only nice thing is that it has this pitch envelope, very simple, which can be more extreme, but I have it on a very subtle thing, and I think some light chorus on it, but that's already feels very different to just playing with no pitch envelope, So I like just messing with a little bit of that. So yeah, that layer sort of turns up at the end of one chorus, but it's quite subtle. It almost really creates new chords out of the art that's already happening. And then once again, I sort of put it on something else, and then it becomes the only part of the outro for a bit. Except this time it's on an Arturia sort of vocoder, the vocoder V, which you can also use as synth. And once again, I'm doing this a lot on this disc, where it's like, oh, here's a messy sound now that I've done a clean one,
And are these actual synth sounds, or are they presets, or are they things you're designing?
With this vocoder one, this is a preset. And once I really, I don't use presets that much, but it was this one just felt like, when I describe different parts, different characters, it's like, yeah, let's throw this one in just to offset everything, like it's a playing with the lack of control after having a Spire sound that's quite dialed in. I'm suddenly like, yeah, let's just put it on a noisy vocoder sound and then see what, the vocal is like with that. So this is mainly using, I actually love these plugins, but it's this one's called the MBit Fun MB, which is not a great name, but I think it's Melda Labs or Melda Production. They just do tons of these plugins that all look very similar, but they're all very specific functions. And this one, it's not quite a bit crusher, but it's reducing things to bits and then letting you mess with that. And actually, I've also got this Filter Freak on it, Sound Toys. I actually also don't use this plugin very often. I think, like I said, the ethos of this was just putting things that, that work, but that I'm just like embracing the chaos. So this is it without the filter, just completely crushed. And then the filter then makes it sort of weirdly soft again. So you have this super aggressive thing at the bottom of this kind of, quite nice other layer. And then, okay, I've got this sort of humming, hoovering sound that's a Synplant again, actually. But I think I didn't even put a real musical reference. I was just messing with like putting noise through it, and so you get these extended half synth, half noise elements. And there's other things I reference. So the structure's pretty weird. After the first chorus, just has this break. And I have this sort of sweeping, this is done in Spire again. It's really just just noise oscillator, I think, with some chorus on it. Yeah, it literally reminds me of those like vehicles at Heathrow that are just like trying to get through or something, it's like when they have that very generic oscillator sound. I think I used, I really like this plugin Mixbox. It's like a sort of fake little rack mount thing, but you can quickly try different combinations of effects. So I was hearing, I was messing with the filter while messing with the delays, and kind of seeing as I get the threshold just right, so you can pretty much hear every word, but it's also so buried.